Here goes.
Okay.
Dene Elder, Fred Sangris, Mahsi Cho, you're in Delo today. I'm Richard Van Camp. I'm in Edmonton, Alberta, Treaty 6 territory, born and raised in Fort Smith. I am the grandchild of Woodsaba and Mani Washi. It is a pleasure. It is a joy. With us is Stephanie Erickson. She's a research assistant, University of Victoria, working on this project. And she's also a grad student and destined to be a wonderful professor, a published scholar. And I want to say, Fred Sangris, what a joy it is to see you today. I understand you're working on your memoir. And what I want you to know is what we want to do for you, my friend, is we're going to transcribe all of your words. We're going to send them to you because you can help us with the spelling. And this can be one of the chapters in your autobiography or memoir. That'd be great. So thank you for your time. Thank you for your knowledge. Growing up in Fort Smith in the 70s and the 80s, as a Tlicho, we were, my mom's Rosa Washi, my uncle's James Washi, Eddie Washi, Isadora Washi, Francis. We always heard about the Edzo and the Akaitcho peace treaty between the Dogrib, the Tlicho, and the Chipewyan. And we were always told you can never raise your voice against the Chipewyan. You can never have a fight with the Chipewyan because we really have to honor our ancestors. We have to honor those who we lost in tribal warfare. And we really have to work together in the future and really help each other. So I understand every time I would say, who do I speak to about the Dogrib and Chipewyan peace treaty? Everybody would say Fred Sangris. So Fred, Mahsi Cho, welcome. It's such a pleasure. Bless you, bless your family. This is your time. Anything you want to share? And I'm thinking about future generations of Tlicho and Chipewyan. I think some of them may not know this story. I certainly don't know this story the way you do. I want to hear anything you have to say. So Mahsi Cho, thank you.
Mahsi, I can share that with you. When you guys are ready.
We're ready.
Stephanie?
Ready to go?
Okay, my name is Fred Sangris. I'm an elder. I live in Delo. I'm a member of Yellowknives Dene First Nation. I'm an elder in this community. I work for this community. And I have a family here that knows the history of the peace treaty between the Tlicho and the Yellowknife Chipewyan that happened around 1820s, just after John Franklin arrives in Yellowknife Bay here, just behind me. There's a Yellowknife River, and that's where Akaitcho and Franklin met in August in 1820. When John Franklin arrived here, he wanted to go to the Arctic Ocean. So that's where the story begins. So before I begin with the story, I have to tell you about my family, who are a big part of it. The Sangris family, also known as Kameli family, are great storytellers and have close connection to Akaitcho and the Yellowknives. So when the peace treaty took place at Mesa Lake in the fall of 1823, the Yellowknife chief Chipewyan was there with Akaitcho. Akaitcho is the grand chief of Akaitcho territory, and he is known as the big boss. And there are other chiefs, but there are chiefs of the people. And Akaitcho is the territorial chief of his land. So when the peace treaty were made in Mesa Lake in the fall of 1823, it was a gathering of the people of Tlicho and a gathering of the Yellowknife Chipewyans who agreed to meet in the Barrowlands so they can talk about the peace treaties and the warfare that's been going on for many, many years. And the people, especially the women and children who are afraid for the war, talked about creating peace as well as the trading post, Hudson Bay Company, Northwest Company, and during that time, they could not freely trade with the Indians in this country, and there was much hostility. So even the trading post wanted to peace among the Dene. They send words. I'm pretty sure they send words to the leaders that they must have peace if there's going to be trade, if there's going to be fur trade among the Dene. And there will be no fur trade or no outposts among the Dene if the hostility still continues. So the women's were part of it, and the Northwest Company, Hudson Bay, were also encouraged to have peace so that they can have a trading. So in Mesa Lake, the gathering took place at Mesa Lake, which is approximately a couple of 100 miles northwest of Yellowknife. And during that time, the Dene people in the fall time go on the land to the Bearlands to hunt caribou, moose, getting ready for the winter. Caribou and moose provide clothing for the tribes, as well as preparation, dry food for the winter. And so that's the reason why they were going up to the Bearlands to harvest caribou for their teepees, their food, and clothes, for clothes as well. And so a word went out that they should have a gathering with the Tlicho at a place called Notlati. In my language, that place name is called Notlati. The Tlicho probably call it another different name. It usually happens, same lake has probably two names. And so they have names for, both tribes have name for that same area. So during that time when Akaitcho and Edzo were going to meet that day. So what happened was the Yellowknives Dene knew they were near Mesa Lake, not too far from there. And so the story goes is that my grandfather told me this story. He was over 100 years old. And my grandfather was born in about 1865, northeast of Great Bear Lake. And that's where his father, his grandfather, and about 30 members of his tribe were living all together in that portion of the territory. So my great-grandfather, Nayati, was at the peace treaties. And he witnessed the peace treaty, as well as Akaitcho's oldest son, who was also there. But Akaitcho told his son to go stay behind the rocks with his mother and watch what goes on down there. Watch the peace treaty taking place. If at any time confrontation or fight breaks out, you are to take your mom and the rest of the families and run north where the canoes are, and go north to a certain place where they had a discussion where they would meet if the fight broke out. And so I have no idea where that place is, but through the stories of my grandfather, there was a secret place that they were to meet if the fight broke out, if the peace treaty didn't work out. So Akaitcho's son was a distance away from where the treaty was taking place at Mesa Lake, and he was behind a rock and was watching what took place. And my great-grandfather, Nayati, who was probably in his prime around age 40 years old, he was also there to witness the peace treaty. And that's how the story went through my family. It went from my grandfather, my dad, my mom, and we don't have any TV or radios in our house. We're nomadic people. And so the story goes is that my grandfather is telling us a story. And as my mom would used to say in the log cabin to my grandfather, "Grandfather, tell your children, tell your grandchildren your story of Mesa Lake and the peace treaties. Tell stories to your grandchildren." So every evening, my grandfather would tell the stories. One of them was the peace treaty that took place. And so in order for me to tell the story, I have to tell you a story about where it came from. So in 1865, I'm changing the story a little bit, but in 1865, my grandfather was born there. His dad was died in a hunting accident in northeast of Great Bear Lake. So my grandfather's grandfather raised him. His name was Nayati. Nayati was at the peace treaty talks when he witnessed the discussion there. So my grandfather was born in 1865 in that area, northeast Great Bear Lake, and during that time, he said he was about 6 or 7 years old. His mother told him to go down to the river, which is on the Chipewyan River, told him to go fetch some water with the caribou skin bucket to go get some water from the lake. And as he was walking towards the lake, there was an old man was sitting by the lake, looking out into looking across the river and looking into space as if there was nothing there to look at. So my grandfather came up and looked at him, and he said this old man was looking out, and there was nothing to look at. And he was in his own mind. He was thinking about something in his own mind, and he was not focused on what was across the river or lake, but he was thinking about something else. He was like hanging on to a dream or something, you know. He was worrying about something. And so when he saw the old man with all white hair, long white hair, and he had a lot of scars on his body. So my grandfather went back up to the teepee and he told his mom, "Who is that old man sitting by the lake there with the long white hair, and he's got lots of scars on his body?" So his mom said, "That man there his name is Satsonke. Satsonke is one of the last warriors of Akaitcho's group, and he's traveling with us. He's traveling with us to go to Contwoody Lake, where the caribou is. He's an old man now. He's very old, and he might not last a long time. And that's why he's sitting by the lake, and he's thinking about what he's done in the past, and he's thinking about how he will be buried. He wants to be buried with a Christian cross because he has fear of dying for all that they've done through the wars. According to my grandfather and grandmother, he has a lot of scars on his body. So he went through a lot of battles, but now he's an old man. And so not long after that, they start to take their camps down, their teepees, and start to move up the river, going towards Point Lake. They were going to go from Great Bear Lake, Copper Mine, Point Lake. They were close to Point Lake. Now they're taking their camp down, and they're going to go to Lac de Gras. And from Lac de Gras, they're going to go up to Yellowknives territory, which is Contwoody Lake. Contwoody Lake is actually a Chipewyan name, and it's used by Chipewyan in the past. Konk-et-T is a Chipewyan name, and that's what the Yellowknives Dene call Contwoody Lake, Konk-et-T, which means Lake of Many Camps, because the Yellowknives were the only tribes going north to Nunavut, and the Bathurst Inlet Inuit also came to Contwoody Lake, the same area. And so the Dene, Yellowknives Dene, and the Inuit camped together on Contwoody Lake. So that's why my tribes call it Konk-et-T, which means the lake of many camps, because the Dene have teepees and the Inuit people have teepees too as well, and they're camping together. And the Yellowknives brought in goods from Lake Athabasca, like needles, knives, cooking pots, tools that the Inuit people could use. They brought it to from Lake Athabasca trading post. They brought it to Contwoody Lake. They traded with the Inuit in exchange for copper, fur, hides, anything of value that the Inuit people want to give to the Dene in trade for all the goods that they brought there. But according to the old people, the Inuit women were really happy with the needles and the threads that they received. They've never seen a needle like that before, made of metals, and they were sewing with it. They were so happy with the needles and that they trade. So for the longest time, the Inuit of Bathurst Inlet and the Contouille Lake area and the Yellowknives have been meeting and trading for hundreds and hundreds of years. They are also not, they don't have any conflict with the Bathurst Inlet. The Bathurst Inlet Inuit are very good people, friendly people, and people that want to trade. They're not into conflict or fighting or anything like that, but they share the land and they share the trade and the wealth too as well. They were friends, as you could probably consider them as friends. And so the trading with the Yellowknives Inuit was a peaceful trade, and it continued until 1952. I went to the tundra. I was raised in the tundra, and I went to the camps of where they used to trade. And there is still some remnants and teepee rings and camp rings and all those things still there. And the elders who brought me there said this is where the elder and the Inuit used to meet, and it's called Kunketi. So when my grandfather's David, they called him, his name is his Dene name is Otekarder. Otekarder means Portash boss. So Otekarder and his family and great grandfather Nayati were starting to move their camps and move out. And so my grandfather asked his mom, he said, "Where is that old man with the white hair that was traveling with us? Did we leave him behind?" And so his mother, my grandfather's mother, told him that old man died the other day. He wanted a Christian burial. So we buried him on the Coppermine River with a pile of rocks, huge rocks, and we put a Christian cross on top of it. And so that old man, he died. Tatsunke is one of the warriors that travel with Akaitcho. In English, you can probably call him Raven's Foot. That's what it means, Tatsunke, Raven's Foot. So Ravenfoot died on the Coppermine River and is buried there. I've been trying to organize a trip with my brothers on the Coppermine River for a few years now. I wanted to go find that Christian burial of the warrior. I'm really determined to go on that river next year. I'm going to go on a search and see if I can find it. But when they left the graveyard, they went north to Lac de Gras, and then from there they went to Contouille Lake to meet up with the Inuit people. And the reason they're going to Contouille Lake is that they're going to harvest calves, caribou calves, so that they can make clothing for children. And also they're going to harvest cows of animals for clothes for the winter. And also they collected the caribou antlers for making bows and arrows so that they can harvest muskox. And so that's how they went. And that's how we learned that story, is that my grandfather and David was probably over 100 years old at Gordon Lake, north of Yellowknife. And he was living in a cabin with us during the winter. And he was telling us a story about the peace treaty at Mesa Lake and how it took place. So my grandfather's grandfather was first-hand witness to the talks and what took place. And Akaitcho's son was also at Mesa Lake behind a big rock. So years and years later, when my grandfather was born in 1865, the Coppermine River, when he was 7 years old, went to get water for his mom, along with the Raven's Foot, who also traveled with them. There was also Akaitcho's oldest son with his 2 children and wife, was also living with my grandfather's family. So Akaitcho's son was telling my grandfather and the family the story of his father, Akaitcho, what happened at Mesa Lake and how they negotiated the peace treaty and the events that took place. So it was the first hand knowledge and stories that was passed on to my family. My family, Sangris and Kameli family, are the only ones that carried that story because my grandfather was also heard that story from Akaitcho's son, who he met, and also the story came from the warrior Ravensfoot, and also my great grandfather Nayati, who was also a witness at Mesa Lake within the crowds when they were talking about the peace. So what happened at the peace treaty is when they were paddling, Akaitcho arrives close to Mesa Lake, and two of his warriors, young warriors, wanted to go up ahead to check out the country to see if there's any Tlicho in the area, because there might be an attack. It might be a setup where they could be attacked. So Akaitcho said yes to his two young warriors, go up ahead, go and check out the grounds to see if any smoke or you see anybody or any sign of people walking around on the tundra. So when they paddled up, they went about maybe a couple of kilometers, and they saw a man on a hill. And that man on the hill did not see the canoe, but they saw that man on the hill. He was a Tlicho man who was standing on the hill looking around. He was probably asked by he might have been asked by Edzo to go check out the grounds up ahead too as well. And so this man was looking out. So two of Akaitcho's warriors in a canoe, one of them said, I forgot my knife and my pack at the camp. Let's go back camp. But the guy in front didn't want to go back. He wanted to continue paddling and meet up with that man standing on a hill. But the other guy said, no, I forgot my knife and my bag and my hunting gear. Let's go back to the camp. So they turned the canoe around and they went back to Akaitcho's camp. And that's when Akaitcho heard the news that there was someone standing on a hill, and it could be Tlicho. And the other side is Mesa Lake. And so it was close to Mesa Lake. So it appears that Edzo might have sent a scout to look for smoke or anyone that he saw. He might have reported back to Edzo that he saw a canoe, and Akaitcho was reported that they saw a man on a hill. And so with that, all of Akaitcho's party left. There was probably about 300 of them. They left and they walked over the hill to Mesa Lake. And when they got to Mesa Lake, Edzo was there, probably about the same amount of people, warriors on the other side. It was all sand dune. Mesa Lake is a beautiful place, all sand dune, nice ground, open area, gravel everywhere. And so Akaitcho sat on one end of the escort, and Edzo sat on one side. They were probably about 40 feet apart. And in the middle of that was Chipewyan. Chipewyan was the Yellowknife River chief of the Chipewyan tribe. Chipewyan also was a brother-in-law to Edzo. Chipewyan, Yellowknife River chief, married Edzo's sister. And so they were almost like friends. But Chipewyan also understood that he is with Akaitcho as a warrior. So he was instrumental in mediating the peace treaty, because Edzo sat over here, Akaitcho sat way over there, and in the middle was Chipewyan, who was mediating the peace treaty. He wanted peace treaty because the women and children in his tribe, including the older people, wanted peace, according to the Northwest Company, Hudson Bay Company, who also wanted peace so that they can trade. And so when the negotiations, peace treaty took place, some other people I heard told me the same story. A few years ago, Tony Rabiska from Betchuko came to see me in my office, and he wanted to talk to me about a peace treaty that took place. And he showed me how the peace treaty took place. And he said Edzo was standing over Akaitcho and pointing his finger like this, telling him, "You're responsible for all those wars for all these years." Now, I told Tony, I don't believe that story, because you have to be careful. There's no RSMP. You cannot phone the army or guards or phone the RSMP, or there's strong medicine. There's shamans and medicine that's been used at that time too. You cannot point a finger at anybody. You'd be killed right away. I told Tony that. It's not like modern day. It's the olden days. And if you point finger at somebody, you get killed right away. And the war will start right away. So in those days, even today, among Dene, you can't point your finger at anybody. It is offensive if you did that. And it's still like that today. So what Tony told me, I didn't believe him at all. I said, that's not true. Because I heard it from the first hand. My grandfather, Nayat Otikadar, and his father, Nayati, his grandfather told him the story. And Akaitcho's oldest son, was traveling with my family in about 1865. He had 2 children and he was married. He had a wife with him. So Akaitcho's son also told the story of his father at Mesa Lake. So that's how I got the story. So when I heard it from Tony Rabiska from Betchuko, Tlicho, I disagree with him, because it's not the way it happened. The way Tony said it, Akaitcho was sitting here, Edzo was sitting there, just sitting really close. It's not like that. It was scary times. It was hostile. It was barter negotiations, really hard negotiations, and wars could start. You could get killed right away. So Akaitcho was sitting over there, Edzo was sitting, and they were about a distance. They're sitting way apart. And that's how negotiations took place, not the way Tony Rabiska described it. He doesn't know much about it, and I don't know where he got his story from, but that's not the way it happened. It happened with people sitting at the distance, and they're talking really loud so that the warriors on this side, 300 of them, could hear what the leaders are saying. Akaitcho's warriors, 300 of them over there, so they can hear what we're saying. So the leaders were talking really loud. They were sitting way apart, and Katekwi was the mediator. He was mediating to make sure that there was going to be a peace treaty. So after 3 days of talking with each other, and they finally had an agreement, and that from now on, they agreed that Akaitcho's land is really huge. It goes across Great Slave Lake, Lonely Bay, it goes to Fort Providence, it goes right around Huati, and it goes right through Great Bear Lake, Great Bear Mountain, and it goes to northeast of Great Bear, and it goes on the Coppermine River, Contoida Lake, and it goes to the Tlicho Game Sanctuary, and it goes close to Fort Chipewyan, and across the lake, and back to Lonely Bay, Great Slave Lake. That's Akaitcho territory. It's huge. And at that time, about 1823, there was probably between 7,000 to 8,000 Yellowknives Dene living around Great Slave Lake. This includes Lake Shutsugay, Dene, Roche River, all those people. So Yellowknives were a very big group in 1823. By 1955, epidemic influenza came here, took a lot of people. So by 1955, the disease that came up here almost wiped out all of Dene people, including Tlicho, Tlicho, Lake Athabasca, Lake Yellowknives Dene, Kuglaktak, Bathurst Inlet. That disease went all over, and it cut a lot of people down. So the Yellowknives went from 7,000 to about 500 in 1955. My grandfather and my family were one of those people that was lucky to survive, because my grandfather took my dad and his family and went to the Bearlands and Lac de Gras, and they stayed up there for about 3 years to get away from the influenza. So when they came back to this area, Yellowknife Bay, they found that a lot of their people had perished and died, and there's only a few survivors left. And that's how the Yellowknives numbers went from thousands to about a few hundred because of the 1920 influenza. 1928 was the worst year. Hundreds and hundreds of people, some were not buried, they were just on the land and they perished. So today we go on the land east of here, different places. I still find skulls, I still find bodies from way back in those times when people were not buried during the 1928 influenza. We still find those camps. People, the whole family perish. So the story of the peace treaty, when the leaders agreed, is that from Great Bear Lake, there is a peninsula, a big hill, peninsula, and both Akaitcho said, my land will be from this peninsula hill, and then going straight down to north of Russell Lake, there's another big hill, and go to Great Slave Lake, close to Edzo, there's another big hill. That will be a Akaitcho boundary line. From there, my country will be east. For you, Edzo, from those peninsula hills, from Russell Lake north, Edzo, all the way west, that will be your land. That will be, your people will occupy that land. So Akaitcho was giving up part of his territory so that other tribes could be accommodated. You got to remember that wars with the Dene people just don't start. It has to be something that took place. What happened is that when new tribes are moving into your territory, you have to confront them. You have to confront them and find out who they are and why they're coming into your country. And that's how war starts. Look at Geronimo. Geronimo was a great man. He put a mark on American history. Geronimo was not a real warrior because somebody was coming into his country. He had to defend his country. He had to defend his people's territory. And that's why Geronimo stood up. Just like Akaitcho stood up because there were new people coming into his territory. From my mother, who was Tlicho, my grandfather, my dad are Yellowknife Chipewyan. From a story from my mother is that the Tlicho people came from the south. They came from Fort Smith area, a place called Tlicho 2. Today we call that lake Pine Lake. Where Francois Paulette lives in Fort Smith area, there's a lake called Pine Lake. That lake is called Tlicho 2. And the Tlicho used to live around Lake Athabasca and the Salt Plains area 300 years ago. And when they were attacked by the Crees in Lake Athabasca, they moved into Fort Resolution area, a place called Buffalo Lake. And from there, the people in Dene, Russell River attacked them because you have new people coming into the territory and they don't know who they are. And so the Tlicho, according to my mom, crossed the lake in the wintertime, went across the lake, and they continued their journey until they end up in Huati, what we call Sonti. Huati is where the Tlicho live. Now, today, the Yellowknives Dene see the people of Huati as the real Navajo people. These are people that came from the south, and we regard the people of Huati as Tlicho, but they're also known as Navajo. In 1989, a group of Navajo people came to Dene, and they were searching for their people that went north about 1,200 years ago. And they heard some stories that they may be up here in the north. but they weren't sure. So they went to Dene about 1989, 88, and they were searching for their missing people that went up here, the other half of Navajo. So let me tell you a story about that. I was in Scottsdale, Arizona, many years ago. A mining company called BHP brought us to Scottsdale, Arizona, and they brought us to meet with the Navajo because the Navajo were running a mining company, a coal mining company on behalf of BHP. And the company brought us to Scottsdale. And I was really happy that they did that because on my journey to Scottsdale, there were many, many Navajo people there. And this big building, they were putting on a dinner for us paid by BHP. And as I was grabbing my soup and my food, I was walking out and I didn't know where to sit. I didn't want to sit among the young Navajo because they might not tell me anything. So I was looking around and I saw this old lady sitting on a table by herself, very elderly lady. So I said, that's the person I want to talk to. So I went and joined her, and she speaks a little bit of English. She understands English. She also speaks her language. And I told her that my mother was Tlicho, and I like to talk to her in my Tlicho language, the language my mom used. And I talked to her, and she understood me. So I told her to count to 10, number 1 to 10, see if I could understand it. She counted number 10, and number 7 and number 9 were different. All the numbers were the same in Tlicho. So I told her, I'll count the numbers to 10 in Tlicho, because my mom taught me how to speak Tlicho. And she taught me how to use the numbers in Tlicho. So I count the number all the way to 10. And she understood all the numbers. She said, you guys are missing people in the north. I said, not us. The Tlicho and Bechuco that lived there, they're the ones who speak that language. My mom is Tlicho, and that's how I learned the history. And that there was missing people called the Navajo who came from the south. There's a writing on a wall by the Cree and Fort Smith area, big wall. There's a writing on the wall, a graphic writing that's probably there for about 200-300 years, and it was made by a Cree and chasing the Tlicho, writing on the wall in the Salt Plains area, still there. Now the man you want to get in touch with in Fort Smith, his name is Richard Mercurdy. He has a photocopy of that photograph of a Cree chasing Tlicho in Salt Plains area. He sent it to me years ago, but I might have lost it in my computer. But Richard Mercurdy is the guy you want to get in touch with that writing on the wall. He might send you a photocopy of that. But that's where the people in that area cross this lake and they end up on this lake. So Akaitcho heard about it, and so he took his men and families, and they went to Water Lake, Wati, and they found people living in Tsonti. Tsonti, it used to be called Tsonti, because there was battle that took place in Wati, and there were many, many bodies that were thrown into the lake. And so that lake was called Scum Lake, because of the bodies that was thrown into the water. But many years later, Tlicho changed that name from Tsonti to Wati. So the name is Wati today. I have friends living there, well, good friends that I grew up with, and I know them well. And they also tell me the story that they came from the south, far south, and that they're not from this area. But politics is politics, right? It's how it is. But sometimes politics can change history by a word of mouth. And that's what the leaders can do. But if you talk to Richard Mercurdy, he can tell you that. And if you talk to Francois Paulette about Pine Lake, he can probably tell you that it's called Tlicho too. And that's how the wars start up here, tribal wars. All the Dene people get along really good in the north here. But when another tribe is invading or coming into your country, you don't know who they are. That's where conflict and war, tribal war starts. And that's how tribal war started. Tribal wars don't start just because of nothing. It starts because you're walking into someone's country and that person doesn't feel comfortable that you walk into his country. And there could be battles. And similar to Geronimo, as I mentioned, people were invading his country and taking his country. So Geronimo had no choice but to confront them and to protect his country and his people, just as Akaitcho did. Akaitcho did the very same thing. But he was also shown for many, many years as the warriors that took many, many lives. And like all battles, conflict, lives have been lost. And it does happen. North of Yellowknife, a place called Mackay Lake, there's a lake called Lake of the Enemy. About a little over 300 years ago, the Crees came up north and confronted the Yellowknives Dene, who were also living and hunting in that area in the fall time. Battles took place there too. So about 300 or so Yellowknives Dene died there too as well, hundreds of years ago. And today, we don't go to that place anymore when we hunt because Akaitcho and Tatsunke and a man named Satli, who was a medicine man, he traveled with Akaitcho, he protected Akaitcho through his medicine powers. And that same man put a spell on Lake of the Enemy north of here, and he told many of the Yellowknives not to go hunting or go there, because if you go in that country, I put a spell on it, you will get sick and you will lose your life. I live in Mackay Lake as a bearland trapper for 9 years. My family are nomadic family, and because my father was a bearland trapper, my grandfather was a bearland trapper. When I was 18 years old, I got out of school and I bought dog team and I went north. And I trapped with my father for years, and I trapped in the bearlands for about 9 years. And that's one area, Lake of the Enemy. I didn't go there because I believe the old man shaman, Satli, that he put a spell on that lake. I was afraid to go there. And I'm lucky to be alive today. I don't know if I went there, I would have probably got sick or the medicine power is still alive. I don't know, but I never go there. So the history of Mesa Lake, it's a long history, and many people talk about the history. What happened is that one person tells a story, it goes on to the next story, and the next story, and the next story, and by that time, the story is lost. It has changed a lot. But my story and my family, it came straight from my grandfather at a cabin at Gordon Lake. He was over 100 years old. And then my great-great-grandfather, Nayati, also retold that story. And Akaitcho's oldest son, who was traveling with my family in 1865, 1870s, also told a story to my family, what he witnessed at Mesa Lake, what his father, Akaitcho, did, and how they negotiated. So after the peace treaty was made at Mesa Lake, all the men on both sides, Tlicho and Yellowknives and Chipewyans, threw their weapons in the air, and they all started celebrating. They were hugging each other, they were shaking hands, they were so happy that from now on, there'll be no more wars with the Tlicho or with the Akaitcho's warriors, the Yellowknives, and that there will be peace from now on. So the two leaders, they were sitting way apart. They came together and they held their hands and they made a commitment that they will keep this peace among their people from here on forever. If anybody violates that peace treaty, the punishment would be death. And both of the chiefs agreed that any one of their members violate this peace treaty, the punishment will be death. And that they agreed on that. And so at Mesa Lake, the Tlicho and the Yellowknives, they danced together for 3 days and 3 nights. So if you had a satellite, you look down at Mesa Lake, you're going to see that circle where the peace treaty took place and where the people danced for 3 days and 3 nights because of the peace that was made. You can still see the visible print of the circle, probably from satellite. You can still see it. And that's where we regard as the Mesa Lake as a place of peace and a place of where the legend of the history of the peace where it took place. So Mesa Lake is an important place for both Tlicho and both Yellowknives and the Akaitcho and the Chipewyan tribe. They regard this place as a sacred place, a place where the peace took place. And it's in the memory of many, many Yellowknives, and including Tlicho, I'm sure, that they have history that's passed on to them from this place. And so many years later, Akaitcho and heard about his brother, Longlegs, were going to and at up near Great Bear Lake, where Akaitcho's has 5 brothers. With him, it was 5 brothers. 4 of his brothers were at the south of Great Bear Lake at a place, I can't remember that name. My mom calls it, it's NT. It's NT. So it might be a big lake by Great Bear Lake. Anyways, Longlegs and his brothers confronted the Tlicho that were camping there. And Longlegs didn't want that peace treaty. He wanted to continue with the wars. And so he went and attacked the Tlicho camp over there. And Akaitcho heard about it that winter, and he was not happy because he shook hands with the Edzo and that the punishment will be death. And Akaitcho, I'm pretty sure he remembered that. So he sent word out to have all his brothers come to him that coming summer. And that Tlicho were going to come and confront Akaitcho because of the attack that took place north of on Great Bear Lake. Can't remember that name. There's a big lake there. Anyways, Akaitcho's brothers came that summer, and his brothers explained to Akaitcho what happened at that place there, north of south of Great Bear Lake, where they attacked the Tlicho camp. And the brothers said it was based on the word of Longlegs. Longlegs gave the order to attack that camp, where the other brothers and didn't want to, but because of Longlegs, they attacked the camp, and so the people they attacked perished, and Akaitcho was not happy, and he knew that, and he knew that the law that they made, the punishment was death, and I can probably tell you that Akaitcho was not very comfortable in this position because he was the one who said the punishment is death. So the Tlicho came to Akaitcho's camp and remind him that we had a peace treaty. Several years ago, we had a peace treaty. And within that peace treaty, we shook hands and that we will not attack each other, that there will be peace from now on. But your brother Longlegs went and attacked our people and perished them. And that's what happened. We want to hear from you, Akaitcho. What are you going to do? Because you're the one who said, and you agree with Edzo that the punishment would be death if anybody breaks the peace treaty. And Akaitcho said, yes, you're right. That's what we said. And that's what will have to happen. And the Tlicho were right there at Akaitcho's camp, and they want to see what will take place. So Akaitcho called for his brother Longlegs to go see him. Longlegs arrives at Akaitcho's camp. He tells his brother to kneel in front of him. And he told his brother, the peace treaty we made was supposed to be peace. the peace treaty we made with Tlicho is supposed to be honorable, and that the peace treaty we made, we agreed that the punishment was supposed to be death for anybody violate that peace treaty. So Akaitcho takes this big long knife out, the knife that was given to him by Franklin, a sword knife, and he puts a knife on his brother's throat, and he pushes the knife down his throat, right to his brother's heart. And his brother dies in front of him. And when Longlegs died at the hands of Akaitcho, that Tlicho was satisfied. And they said, from now on, we will honor the peace treaty. There will be no more. There will be no more fighting. And so that Tlicho turned around and went back to their homeland. And Akaitcho had to deal with the remaining of his brothers and the remaining of his membership, his tribes. So Akaitcho called on all his tribe members to have one big assembly meeting, and that he's going to send out an important message to all his people, because what happened to his brother, he kills his own brother. Now he has to send a message to the remaining of his membership. And so Akaitcho met with all his people and said, my brother violated that peace treaty. It was honorable, we shook hands on it. And because he violated, he died. That was the punishment. And because he died, the punishment, there will be no more wars, there will be no more confrontation. So what I want you, all the Yellowknives, Dene, is that in order for us to keep the peace for the future, so that our children can live in peace, that they will not fight, there will be no more wars. So I want all your people to go and marry the Tlicho woman, the other people, so that if you have children, that could be Chipewyan, that could be Tlicho children, then in the future, you will have kinship, you have strong kinship, strong relationship, and you will also have in-laws and families, so that when you do that, there will be no more wars between you two. You will keep the peace through your kinship forever and ever. And this is how it will happen. And so many Yellowknives Dene married Tlicho women. My father is one of them. My great-great-uncles, my grandfather's brothers, same thing. And other people in Tlicho and Dene, who are Yellowknives, also married Tlicho women. The Catholic family in Tlicho, their grandmother was Tlicho. Their grandfather is Chipewyan, because they also took the word of Akaitcho and married Tlicho women, so that when their children have children, their children will be kinship, and that there will be peace among the families. So today, that's what we are. Yellowknives Dene have wives, and Akaitcho people have wives. Delaunay, Satu people have wives. Tlicho have wives that are Tlicho. So we are all kind of related. And so the kinship and the peace treaty that was made, we're still holding on to it. Today, in modern day, we're still honor that peace treaty at Mesa Lake. And we maintain the peace and relations with our neighbors today. Our neighbors, Tlicho, Tlicho, Satu, Inuit, we all have peace. We all have peace. We no longer fight each other. Now we shake hands. Now we play hand games. And if Richard Van Camp has gold buttons on his vest, I will win them at the next hand game, every one of them. And that's how we play. We enjoy each other company. We play games to entertain ourselves. we meet each other so that we meet and keep our peace among ourselves with games, drums, and dances. That keeps us peace. The drum hand games brings all the Dene people together, and we shake hands, and we are like one big family. The peace is still there in our minds. And the hand games and the drum dances reminds us that there is peace. And that's how we live today, to this day. There is peace among all of us. The conflict that took place, it's gone. That Northwest Company, Hudson Bay Company encouraged peace while they're trading. They still continue to trade. They have Hudson Bays in almost every community now, except the city of Yellowknife. We confronted the Hudson Bay and said, we don't want you here anymore. You did damage in the past. You know, you cheated us with fur trade. You treated us with everything. That's how Hudson Bay got wealthy today all over the country. They cheated a lot of indigenous fur trade. That's how they got wealthy. So we didn't want any Hudson Bay in this area. They were part of that. Anyways, that's the story from my family. My grandfather, who was probably about 117 years old, he was one of the oldest living, and he was baptized as David Chief Sangris. But his real name is Otekarder. Otekarder is a Chipewyan name for potash boss. So when my grandfather was born near Great Bear Lake, northeast Great Bear Lake, his father died months before he was born in a hunting accident. So they were moving from Great Bear Lake to Coppermine River. They were going on this long portage. There's one long portage called Huate. It's called Huate. And they were going on a long 1 kilometer portage on the esker. Right in the middle of the portage, my grandfather David's mom was pregnant and she was ready to give birth. And so my grandfather David was born right there on that portage. And so his grandfather Nayatu tells everybody, stop. My grandson is born here. We are going to stop here on this portage for 3 days. Nobody will move. Everybody set up your tent. My grandson is born here, and we're going to spend 3 days here with him till he gets strong. And so when my grandfather was born, and the people all gathered, he was born in the middle of this long portage, and everybody stopped. And so his grandfather, Nayati, gives his grandson a name. I'm going to name my grandson because we walked from one end, but we didn't make the other end. This is a long esker. This place is called Huate. And because he stopped us and is born here, he stopped us from continue to finish our portage. So I'm going to name him Portage Boss, Otekarder. So my grandfather was given the name Otekarder, Portage Boss. He stopped everybody from that portaging. And they made everybody camp for 3 days till they got strong. And they continued their journey. And that's the story from Fred Sangris.
Mahsi Cho, Fred, I can't thank you enough. Mahsi Cho, you've humbled me. You have astounded me. You are incredible. Thank you so much. I'm coming up in a couple weeks. I'd love to visit with you and shake your hand. I just, I can't thank you enough again for the wealth of your knowledge, your devotion to your stories and what you were told. I'm so grateful. And I thank you. And I also know you're a very, very busy man. And I know there's a lot you want to do today. I see the sun is shining over there. So I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, Mahsi Cho, my friend. Mahsi.
Mahsi Cho, definitely. Thank you for recording, and we'll see you soon.
Mahsi Cho.
Mahsi Cho. Talk to you soon.